At 2 a.m. in pouring rain, mechanic Marcus Rivera found a beaten woman and her terrified son hiding under a streetlight. He thought he was saving strangers. He never imagined they were fleeing a monster, or that the woman he rescued would inherit a billion-dollar oil empire and change his life forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The rain hammered against the windshield of Marcus Rivera's old pickup truck as he drove through the empty streets of Millfield at 2 a.m. His 8-year-old daughter Sophia slept peacefully in the back seat, exhausted from their late-night trip to the emergency room. She had recovered from her fever, but Marcus's heart still raced with the fear every single parent knows too well. As he turned onto Maple Street, his headlights caught something that made him slam on the brakes. Two figures huddled under a broken streetlight, a woman and a small boy, both soaked to the bone. The woman was holding her arms strangely, and even through the rain, Marcus could see dark bruises on her face. "Stay in the truck, Mija," Marcus whispered to Sophia, though she remained fast asleep. He grabbed his umbrella and stepped into the storm. "Ma'am? Are you okay?" Marcus called out, approaching carefully. The woman looked up with frightened eyes. She couldn't have been older than 30, with long dark hair plastered to her face. The boy beside her, maybe 6 years old, clung to her good arm with tears streaming down his cheeks. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the rain. "Don't call the police. We just need somewhere to wait until morning." Marcus's heart broke at the sight. The woman's left wrist hung at an unnatural angle, clearly broken. Purple bruises decorated her neck like a horrible necklace. The little boy wore only thin pajamas, his lips blue from the cold. "I'm not calling anyone you don't want me to call," Marcus said gently, removing his jacket and wrapping it around the shivering child. "But you both need medical attention and somewhere warm. My name is Marcus Rivera. I live just down the street." The woman studied his face in the dim light. Something in his kind brown eyes must have convinced her, because she nodded weakly. "I'm Elena Martinez. This is my son Daniel." Marcus carefully helped Elena to her feet, supporting her injured arm. "Can you walk? My truck is right here." As they made their way to the vehicle, Daniel tugged on Marcus's shirt. "Mister, is my mama going to be okay?" Marcus knelt down to the boy's level, rain streaming down his face. "She's going to be just fine, buddy. I promise we'll take good care of both of you." In the truck, Marcus cranked up the heat and handed Elena some tissues from the glove compartment. In the overhead light, her injuries looked even worse. Someone had hurt this woman badly. "Elena," Marcus said softly, "I know you said no police, but you need a doctor. That wrist is definitely broken." Elena shook her head frantically. "He'll find us at the hospital. He said he'd kill us both if we ever tried to leave." The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. He thought of his own daughter, sleeping peacefully in the back seat, and imagined anyone threatening her. The rage that built in his chest was white-hot, but he forced himself to stay calm. "Then we don't go to the hospital," he said. "I have a friend who's a doctor. She makes house calls for situations like this. Will that work?" Elena's eyes filled with tears of relief. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." Marcus glanced back at Sophia, then at little Daniel, who had fallen asleep against his mother's shoulder despite everything. "Because it's the right thing to do. Because everyone deserves to be safe." Marcus's small 2-bedroom house had never felt more like a home than when he watched Elena and Daniel finally relax on his living room couch. Dr. Sarah Chin, his longtime friend and neighbor, had arrived within an hour, no questions asked. "Clean break in the radius," Dr. Chin explained quietly as she finished setting Elena's cast. "I've given her something for the pain. She needs rest, and that little boy needs food and sleep." Marcus nodded, watching Daniel demolish his third peanut butter sandwich. The kid had been starving. They can stay as long as they need. Over the next few days, the story came out in pieces. Elena had been married to Victor Blackwood, a powerful businessman who owned several construction companies in the city. What had started as a fairy tale romance had quickly turned into a nightmare of control and violence. "He monitors everything," Elena explained one evening as they sat in Marcus's kitchen. Sophia and Daniel were in the living room, already best friends despite knowing each other for only 3 days. "Bank accounts, phone calls, where I go. When I tried to leave the first time, he found me within hours." Marcus poured her another cup of tea, his jaw tight with anger. "What about family? Friends?" Elena's laugh was bitter. "Victor made sure I cut ties with everyone. He said he was the only family I needed." "And Daniel?" Her voice broke. "He started hitting Daniel too. That's when I knew I had to run, broken bones or not." You were brave, Marcus said firmly. Running took incredible courage. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified he'll find us. Marcus reached across the table and gently took her uninjured hand. He won't. I won't let him. Something shifted between them in that moment. Elena looked into Marcus's eyes and saw something she'd forgotten existed. Genuine kindness without conditions. Marcus saw strength and resilience that took his breath away. Victor Blackwood stood in his penthouse office, fury radiating from every inch of his 6-foot frame. 3 private investigators sat across from his mahogany desk, each avoiding his cold gray eyes. It's been a week, Victor said, his voice dangerously quiet. How does a woman with a broken wrist and a 6-year-old boy just disappear? Sir, we've checked every hospital, every shelter, every hotel in a 50-mile radius, stammered the lead investigator. It's like they vanished. Victor's fist slammed down on the desk, making all 3 men jump. They didn't vanish. Someone is helping them. Find out who. He walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city he controlled through fear and money. Elena thought she could run? She thought she could take his son away from him? He'd hunt them down, and when he found them, he'd make sure they never tried to leave again. Triple the reward, he said without turning around. $100,000 for information leading to their location. And put the word out, anyone helping them will regret it. Meanwhile, in Marcus's modest neighborhood, life had settled into a peaceful routine. Elena's wrist was healing, and the bruises on her face were fading to yellow. More importantly, the constant fear in her eyes was being replaced by something Marcus hadn't expected to see: hope. Daniel and Sophia had become inseparable. Every morning they'd race to the kitchen for breakfast, chattering about their plans for the day. Elena would help Marcus pack their lunches for school and work, their hands occasionally brushing, sending warmth through both of them. I need to find a job, Elena said one morning as Marcus prepared to leave for his shift at the auto repair shop. I can't keep taking your charity. It's not charity, Marcus replied, adjusting Sophia's backpack. It's family helping family. The word family hung in the air between them, loaded with possibility. That afternoon, Marcus came home to find Elena crying at the kitchen table, a letter in her hands. What's wrong? He asked, immediately alert. Elena looked up with tear-filled eyes, but to his surprise she was smiling. It's from my grandfather's lawyer. My grandfather? He passed away last month. Marcus sat down beside her, confused. I'm sorry for your loss, but... You don't understand, Elena interrupted, her voice shaking. My grandfather, Alberto Vasquez, he owned Vasquez Oil, one of the largest oil companies in Texas. This letter, it says I'm his sole heir. Marcus's world tilted. What? Elena laughed through her tears. Apparently he'd been looking for me for years. Victor had hidden me so well that even private investigators couldn't find me. But when my grandfather died, his lawyers had to track down all potential heirs for legal reasons. She handed him the letter. Marcus read it twice, his mind struggling to process the numbers he was seeing. $1 billion, he whispered. Elena, this says you've inherited assets worth over $1 billion. The lawyer's office in downtown Houston was nothing like the modest world Marcus and Elena had been living in. Jonathan Whitmore, senior partner at Whitmore & Associates, was a distinguished man in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. Ms. Martinez, he said, standing as Elena entered with Marcus and the children. Or should I say Ms. Vasquez? I've been searching for you for nearly a year. Elena's hand trembled as she shook his. I still can't believe this is real. Oh, it's very real, Mr. Whitmore assured her, gesturing for them to sit. Your grandfather, Alberto Vasquez, built his oil empire from nothing. He was a self-made billionaire, but he never forgot his roots. When your mother died and you disappeared, he never stopped looking for you. He opened a thick file. According to our investigation, you married Victor Blackwood under your married name, which is why you were so difficult to trace. Your grandfather left very specific instructions about what should happen when you were found. Elena listened in amazement as Mr. Whitmore explained her inheritance. Not just money but oil fields, refineries, real estate, and charitable foundations. There's something else, the lawyer continued. Your grandfather knew about your situation with Mr. Blackwood. He hired investigators who documented everything. The abuse, the control, the threats. He wanted to make sure you had the resources to be free. Elena broke down then, sobbing for the grandfather she'd never known but who had protected her even after death. Marcus squeezed her hand, his own eyes wet with tears. He sounds like an amazing man. He was, Mr. Whitmore nodded. And he left a message for you, Elena. Would you like to hear it? Elena nodded, unable to speak. The lawyer pressed play on a small recording device. An elderly man's voice, warm but tired, filled the room. My dear granddaughter, if you're hearing this, then I've passed on, and you've finally been found. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you while I was alive, but I hope this inheritance gives you the power to protect yourself and your son. Be free, Mija. Be happy. And remember that you come from a long line of fighters. The Vasquez family doesn't give up. Word travels fast in certain circles, and Victor Blackwood had connections everywhere. Within 48 hours of Elena's meeting with the lawyers, he knew everything. He stood in his office, phone pressed to his ear, his face a mask of cold rage. Are you telling me, he said slowly, that my wife is now worth over $1 billion? Yes, sir, came the nervous voice of his informant at the law firm. The Vasquez oil inheritance. It's all hers. Victor hung up without another word. His mind raced through possibilities. If Elena thought money would protect her from him, she was wrong. Dead wrong. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he hadn't used in years. Tommy? It's Victor Blackwood. I need a favor. The kind we used to handle back in the day. Meanwhile, Marcus was installing a new security system at his house, his hands shaking slightly as he worked. The money changed everything, but not in the way most people would think. It made Elena a bigger target, not a safer one. Marcus, Elena said, watching him work, maybe Daniel and I should get our own place. This isn't your fight. Marcus turned to face her, his expression serious. Elena, 3 weeks ago you and Daniel were strangers. Now, Daniel calls me Tio Marcus, and Sophia asks every night when you're going to officially be her mama. This became my fight the moment I decided to love you both. The words hung in the air. It was the first time either of them had said the word love out loud. Elena's eyes filled with tears. Marcus, I love you, he said simply. I love Daniel like he's my own son. Money doesn't change that. Danger doesn't change that. Before Elena could respond, Sophia came running into the room with Daniel close behind. Daddy? Mama Elena. There's a scary man at the door. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Through the window he could see Victor Blackwood standing on his front porch, perfectly dressed in an expensive suit, looking like he owned the world. Take the kids to the back room, Marcus told Elena quietly. Call 911. I'm not leaving you, Elena said, her voice stronger than it had been in years. Elena. No, she interrupted. I'm done running. I'm done being afraid. The doorbell rang, followed by Victor's voice. Elena. I know you're in there. Come out and we can discuss this like civilized people. Marcus opened the door but kept the security chain attached. She doesn't want to see you. Victor's smile was cold as winter. You must be the good Samaritan I've heard about. Marcus Rivera, isn't it? Auto mechanic, single father, makes about $30,000 a year. Did you really think you could hide my family from me? They're not your family anymore, Marcus said steadily. A real man doesn't beat women and children. Victor's mask slipped, revealing the monster beneath. You have no idea who you're dealing with, boy. I could destroy you with a phone call. I could make you disappear. Maybe, Marcus acknowledged. But you'd have to get through me first. What happened next would be talked about in the neighborhood for years to come. Elena stepped out from behind Marcus, her chin raised defiantly. Victor. Her ex-husband's eyes widened at the sight of her. Gone was the broken, fearful woman he'd controlled for years. In her place stood someone who looked like she could command boardrooms and oil fields. Elena, darling, Victor said, his voice switching to the fake sweetness she remembered so well. You've been through an ordeal. Let me take you and Daniel home where you belong. This is my home now, Elena replied calmly. And Daniel is staying with me. Victor's face darkened. You think that old man's money makes you untouchable? You're still my wife. Daniel is still my son. Actually, came a new voice from behind Victor. She's not. Everyone turned to see Mr. Whitmore approaching with 2 police officers and a man in an expensive suit. Victor Blackwood, the suited man said, you're being served with divorce papers, a restraining order, and notification that you're under investigation for domestic violence and child abuse. Victor spun around, his composure finally cracking. You can't do this to me. I have connections. I have power. You had power, Elena said quietly. But power built on fear and violence never lasts. Officer Martinez, no relation to Elena, stepped forward. Mr. Blackwood, you need to leave this property immediately. Any contact with Ms. Martinez or her son will result in your arrest. As Victor was escorted away, Still shouting threats, Elena collapsed against Marcus, the strength that had carried her through the confrontation finally giving way to relief. "It's over," Marcus whispered, holding her tight. "It's really over." 6 months later, the Rivera household had changed dramatically, but in all the best ways. Elena had officially taken back her maiden name, Vasquez, and her divorce from Victor was final. He was currently serving 2 years in prison for assault and violating the restraining order. Apparently, he'd been foolish enough to try approaching Daniel's school. The money had allowed Elena to do things she'd only dreamed of. She'd started a foundation for domestic violence survivors, bought Marcus a partnership in the auto shop, and set up college funds for both children. But the biggest change was personal. "Sophia, Daniel, come here," Marcus called from the living room on a sunny Saturday morning. The 2 children came running as they always did when Papa Marcus called. Yes, Daniel had started calling him Papa Marcus, just as Sophia called Elena Mama Elena. "What is it, Daddy?" Sophia asked, bouncing with excitement. Marcus looked at Elena, who nodded encouragingly. He pulled out a small velvet box and got down on one knee. "Elena Vasquez," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "you and Daniel came into our lives like a miracle. You've made us a family in every way that matters. Would you do me the honor of making it legal? Will you marry me?" Elena's hands flew to her mouth, tears streaming down her face. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, yes, yes." As Marcus slipped the ring onto her finger, Sophia and Daniel erupted in cheers, jumping up and down and hugging everyone they could reach. "Are we gonna be real brothers and sisters now?" Daniel asked Sophia seriously. "We already are, silly," Sophia replied, giving him a big hug. "But now it's official." The wedding was small but perfect, held in the same church where Marcus had been baptized as a child. Elena wore a simple white dress that made her look like an angel, and Marcus couldn't stop smiling long enough to say his vows properly. Daniel and Sophia served as ring bearer and flower girl, taking their duties very seriously. Elena's grandfather's portrait sat in the front row, a reminder that love and family can transcend even death. During the reception in Marcus's backyard, now beautifully landscaped thanks to Elena's resources, Mr. Whitmore approached the happy couple. "There's something else your grandfather wanted you to have," he told Elena, handing her an envelope. His final message. Elena opened it with shaking hands and read aloud. "My dear Elena, if you're reading this at your wedding, then you've found what I always hoped you would, true love and genuine happiness. The young man you've chosen has proven himself in ways that money never could. Treasure him as he clearly treasures you. And remember, the greatest wealth isn't in oil fields or bank accounts, but in the love of a good family. Congratulations, Mija. You've chosen well." There wasn't a dry eye in the backyard. As the evening wound down and the children fell asleep in their chairs, Marcus and Elena danced slowly to the music from a small speaker, surrounded by the people who mattered most. "Do you ever regret it?" Elena asked quietly. "Taking us in that night? Your life was so much simpler before." Marcus spun her gently, then pulled her close. "Simple isn't always better. That night I thought I was rescuing you and Daniel. But really you rescued me. You rescued Sophia. You made us complete." Elena smiled up at him. "We rescued each other." As they danced under the stars, their children sleeping peacefully nearby and their friends cleaning up around them, Marcus thought about that stormy night 6 months ago. He'd been driving home from the hospital, worried about Sophia's fever, never imagining that his life was about to change forever. Sometimes the greatest treasures come disguised as the greatest troubles. Sometimes $1 billion inheritance is worth less than a $30,000 heart. And sometimes, a single act of kindness on a rainy night can change 4 lives forever. The oil empire Elena inherited would fund countless charitable projects and help thousands of people over the years. But the real fortune, the love, trust and family they'd built together, was worth more than all the oil in Texas. As they swayed to the music, Elena whispered, "Thank you for stopping that night." Marcus kissed her forehead gently. "Thank you for trusting me." In the distance, thunder rumbled softly, but this time it wasn't threatening. It was just nature's way of reminding them how far they'd come since that first stormy night when a mechanic's kindness and a mother's courage had created a miracle that money could never buy. Their story would inspire others for years to come. The single dad who rescued strangers, the abused woman who found her strength, the children who gained a family, the oil heiress who learned that the greatest wealth is love. But most importantly, it was a reminder that heroes don't wear capes or have superpowers. Sometimes they just drive pickup trucks and carry umbrellas, ready to help whenever someone needs rescuing. And sometimes, the person doing the rescuing discovers they were the one who needed saving all along.